You heard the Commandant mention the NMD, the National Missile Defense Program. It was conceptualized late last century as a defense network to detect and engage enemy ICBMs launched at the continental United States. But at the same time, it came under fire for contributing to nuclear proliferation. The MIRVing of ballistic missiles and the increase in weapon lethality were some of the byproducts of these defense R&Ds.
Dude, this is a Wendy's restaurant.
Hello everyone, welcome to a new episode of the podcast. Today is Friday. Well, Friday for me. Whenever you're listening to this, it could be whatever day you damn well please, because that's the beauty of podcasts. You're allowed to be able to listen to it whenever. So I was pondering in my little gamer brain about a specific man named Hideo Kojima. And some people may know who this guy is, and some people might not know. Hideo Kojima is kind of the Staniel Kubrick. Did I say Staniel? Stanley Kubrick? Jeez, it is early. Holy shit. Hold on. I'm going to double check and make sure that name's right, since I butchered it and broke the immersion. Yeah, Stanley Kubrick. There you go, Staniel. Staniel Kubrick. He's pretty much that guy of video games. Whenever he makes a game, he accounts for a lot of camera angles. He accounts for a lot of almost cinema techniques. And he was kind of doing this before it became popular and mainstream, like titles like The Last of Us or things like that. That's the one everyone cites, but honestly, it's been around way before them. But it's neither here nor there. Yeah, it's really interesting. I've kind of gone through, and in my spare time, if I have any, there's been one of two things. Because I have played Metal Gear Solid 3, Metal Gear Solid 2. I know the story of Metal Gear Solid 1. Played most of Metal Gear Solid 4. And then played through Metal Gear Solid 5. Okay, so I've played a good portion of them, right? And at first, I didn't necessarily know the story. And I was trying to piece it together while I played it, but I mean, that's why you got YouTube videos to explain to you what events were and what stuff meant, which I love that kind of stuff. People who really analyze stuff and be like, this is why this happened. And if you notice this, this is why this is connected to this, which is just awesome. That melts my brain. I absolutely love it. But after watching this kind of analysis of the whole series on how it was pretty much a political espionage spy game, a lot of stuff that Hideo put into the game and kind of predicted kind of came true regarding the political climate in the aspect of war. And I'm not getting political here, so I'm not going to go into it, but I noticed that and I thought, okay, that's interesting how, okay, he kind of took some pieces and he's like, this is probably going to happen. Let's make a game out of it. Then Death Stranding occurred, and I've played through Death Stranding, and I'm actually kind of watching this giant 7-hour video. I'm like only on hour 3, I think, talking about it, by, I think it's White Light, which if that piques your interest any, you know, it's literally going through the entire game. It is literally talking about everything the game has to offer. Every little nook and cranny here or there. Watch it. Give it a watch. If that is up your alley at all. Because it's good. It's good stuff. And I guess his perspective of a world where everyone was afraid to go outside. Everyone was afraid to be close to each other. Everyone was afraid to touch each other even. There's a lot of game world stuff that explains that. But everyone's pretty much secluded. Except for the character in the game is Sam Porter Bridges. But it's Norman Reedus. Like that actor. Like, this came out before this whole pandemic coronavirus stuff happened. And I'm like, whoa. Like, he predicted that too. However, I'm not saying he's, like, clairvoyant in this stuff, because other people have been having this discussion way before this all happened. I think this was the first time it was brought to my light and how people would react to something like this. And which is very true to how people are reacting to it now. People are afraid, fear-mongered by social media. That's where I will get political. I hope Facebook burns into the ground and every person who has a job there loses it. Hate Facebook. But yeah, that's a great way to open the podcast. Very depressing, very dark. But yeah, a lot of the themes in that game, in Death Stranding, are very telling of the times, very focused. Now, I already know that game is definitely not for everybody, because honestly, I really like it, but it's not even a game for me. Like, I like the artistic direction, I love the art, I love I think it's okay to love everything about a game except for playing it, right? I can love all the creative ideas, all the cinematography, everything about Death Stranding. But God, will I probably never play it again in my life. But it's definitely something I'll remember, but I will never play it again. And I've already talked about the type of games that interest me. There has to be a progression or there's a very tight gameplay loop that I find enjoyable. And that's what's so cool about games, because there's literally a game for everyone. Everyone who has a different style of play, everyone who has different preferences, you can always find a game like that. And mine is just either you got to be leveling up all the time. There's got to be this kind of carrot at the end of the stick, or pot of gold at the end of the rainbow that you're always going toward. Because when you finally reach that, the dopamine that's released in your brain and the serotonin that gets fired through your veins is just, it is just amazing. And probably someone listening to this is thinking, this guy just compared the rush you get from and I think probably the biggest rushes you could get is from sexual activity or drugs. And he's like, do you just compare the gameplay loop in Destiny 2 to that? I'm like, hell yeah, I did. I sure did. That shit's great. Love it. I'll eat that up for breakfast. But also come out. This is the official moment I come out of I guess you would say, the gamer closet and say, I don't think I'm a real gamer anymore. I don't necessarily believe I am as hardcore as I once was. Because games I have an interest in, what I will actually do is you can find an entire walkthrough, you can find a video cut up on YouTube, and you can watch the whole game. Now, yes, you're not experiencing it, but at the same time, you're still getting to understand the story, kind of the mechanics. That's what I did with Jedi Fallen Order, which, I'll be real, I'm not a real gamer. I know the entire story of that game. I know all the story beats. I watched the entire movie of it. And then when I talk to people about it, and they're like, oh, I love Star Wars Fallen Order. And we're talking about it, and they're like, did you like this part where you played this, and this? I'm like, I didn't play it. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I just watched a movie online. And they're like, dude, what do you mean you lost? And I guess that takes the game out of the gamer thing. But I already said that I prefer games that actually have gameplay compared to interactive movies, which some of those are. But, I mean, Jedi Fallen Order is great. It's great that Respawn was able to pump that out in a time where everything was poopy. It's great. I think it's great. Also, other games that I do that with is kind of Death Stranding with that review right now. I do that with a lot of big titled, AAA games that I don't really have time for. And who has time anymore? I don't know about you, but being a nerd in these days, it's tough. Regarding work, is that I've been the busiest I've ever been since we've been in a pandemic. Because work has more expectations of you because you are at home. And I think a lot of other people can sympathize, empathize, even relate to this. Where it's yes, even though I'm at home, work is still work. Work is tough. Work is never easy. And maybe you might just have a job where you focus on the computer and you just do, but it's still work. It's still draining Because no one would just want to sit home all day and work. No one wants that. In a perfect world, everyone wants to have a bunch of money and they can just hang out and just live. But fortunately, we are cogs in the capitalist machine, even socialist maybe some days. But that's why we have games. That's why we have podcasts like this, so we can just joke around and have some fun. And I also started to notice whenever I was going back and editing some podcasts, I'm like, oh man, the political bits kind of seep through. I don't necessarily think it's political. I think it's just a discussion of, hey, we live in a society. I didn't even mean it like that. I mean, like, we live in the real world. So real world stuff is going to affect our enjoyment of games, our enjoyment of everything related to that. And speaking of kind of the clash of games and politics, things like that, Epic Games and Fortnite are having a little war with Google Play and iTunes at the current time of this recording. And is it iTunes Store or is it the App Store? I don't remember. I don't have Apple. I'm not a incel, so I don't know. But I guess Epic set it up in their game that you could purchase stuff for Fortnite. You know, you can play Fortnite on your phone. If you don't know what Fortnite is, then you're oblivious to life because it's everywhere, unfortunately. But you can purchase in-game things and circumvent the App Store so there isn't the additional charge on whatever you buy. And Google Play and the App Store did not like that one bit. They threw up their hands, started throwing a tantrum, and kicked the Fortnite game off the App Store and stuff like that. Which is interesting because, I don't know, I'm very conflicted on this. I don't feel that there should be tax put onto microtransactions. They're already kind of scummy where they stand right now. However, free-to-play games and games like Fortnite, they survive off of that. So I can understand that. And they need to make money somehow. But adding a tax onto it, I don't know. But also, it's their right as, you know, Google Play and as the App Store. It's their right to kind of be upset about this because that's how they make their money. And also, Epic's no white knight. I'm not trying to say that at all, because they're definitely not. The two titans are going to war right now, and it's interesting to watch from someone who doesn't really play the game. And I actually don't have much against Fortnite, to be honest. It's all the rave with the kids these days, and honestly, looking at what I grew up with, like, I would rather have them play Fortnite, something that's colorful, something that's very playful, something that has modes that inspire creativity, close to Minecraft, which Minecraft is something that kids play a lot too, but there's no complaints there because that's just, it's aimed at kids. But also, I guess the violence in Fortnite is more on par with like Looney Tunes, that kind of stuff, where it's very cartoony, and then whenever someone gets destroyed, I was even talking like a 90s anime where in America you couldn't say kill. Whenever you kill another player, they just kind of disappear into this little satellite and the game's over, right? When I was growing up, we had Call of Duty and war games like that. And I think that was probably worse because war is pretty much a terrible thing. Now that's my opinion. That's like the one time my opinion's going to soak through regarding that kind of stuff. And we're kind of teaching kids, like, we're normalizing it where it shouldn't be a normal thing. So like Fortnite, I'm like, okay, I see what you're doing. I see what's happening. All right, I get what you're doing. It's a better alternative in my opinion. But that don't mean I have to like it. And I'm kind of flipping through my phone right now, just kind of looking like, hey, look at all this stuff. Everyone's fighting. Everyone's arguing about it. I kind of feel bad for the kids, though, who only way they could play Fortnite is on their phone. And then they try to play Fortnite on their phone, and it's just gone. Because I know that even if you have it downloaded, they'll still have you play it, but you can't download it anymore. However, there's been some reports and cases how, like, it has just deleted itself off of people's phones. And then when they go to download it, they can't download it because it's not there anymore. And that sucks. I know a lot of kids really enjoy that stuff, and a lot of kids function off of that kind of stuff. Yeah, there's sometimes that, kids spend way too much time on video games and they need to get off of it. But also sometimes, depending on the household, sometimes the kids need that for an escape from all the crazy stuff that's going on at home. And especially because of this pandemic and quarantine, domestic violence cases has shot through the roof because people are forced to be at home together. Us as human beings, we are terrible, terrible things. But yeah, so the Titans are going to war. I would love to see how this plays out. I really would. I finally went ahead and in between all this nonsense of work and life, the kids' book, probably the main draft of it, is completed. And I'm working on getting in contact with the people who are in charge of coloring it and being like, hey, when can I drop this off? Well, they're going to scan it first, then they're going to color it in case everything just goes to complete crap, which is a possibility. Because I think this is the first time we are all pretty much attempting something like this. So there's going to be mistakes. And even with some of my drawings, there's a mistake here and there. And I kind of want to touch base with everybody and talk about it. And whenever I collaborate on a project like this, it's super fun. It's super fun to have your opinion heard and bounce ideas off of someone else. I don't know how the coloring is going to go because some of the images are small, but we'll see. And I'm still currently working the same setup I had before. However, I have a new mic. You can't tell the difference, but it was just a lot easier to set up and it picks up a little more, but I had to mess with some settings. And I didn't even know if I would get to an episode this week, but here we are. I had time in the morning before work, as I usually do. Let's grind this out, baby. And I guess at this point, this is where I come out and talk about how I'm a big fat liar. And I can't promise anything anymore. For It Sure Is a Podcast, a lot of it is very much kind of just on a whim whenever I get a recording done or whenever I do something like that. It is hard to do a full-time job, have a life, and then do this on your own and kind of figure out content to talk about. And the kind of fan fiction, short story stuff, however you want to put it, I've been working on that in my spare time to almost set it up as almost a radio drama. Or I guess now it'd be a podcast drama. I don't know. There's podcasts that are just like audiobooks, but they're like episodes, which is super cool. And maybe that will even be something that happens here. But for right now, I can't promise anything anymore. It sucks. And I apologize, but I just want to be transparent that I can't promise anything until, until my stob becomes more stable. I was trying to say my job becomes more stable. And also life becomes a little more stable. But right now, there's a little consistent grouping. And I don't know who you are. I don't know if you're friends. I don't know if you're people who stumbled upon this. I don't know if you were just listening on some of the apps we're on, which is Spotify, iHeartRadio, the iTunes podcast thing, the Google podcast thing, or YouTube. If you're anyone in that grouping, I appreciate you. I appreciate you helping me in this little creative endeavor. And actually, after completing the kids' book, I kind of got fired up to work on another project, which would be I guess I'd put it a kids' book for adults. Now, this one I'm still trying to formulate, and I have someone working with me on it. But it's not like, when I say a kids' book for adults, it's not like, it's not pornographic, it's not overly violent. Like, that's not my intent. My intent with it is, especially in times like these, sometimes you literally need a pick-me-up coming from a source that is almost like a self-help book. Because, yes, we have self-help books, but they're chapter books. They're thick books, right? And some people really do well on this, but some people don't have the time to sit down and pop one of those open, right? So my idea is to take maybe 18 to 20 pages and just make this kind of almost in the style of kids' book, but also just really talk about the crap we go through every single day. The stress with work, the stress with relationships, the stress with being quarantined, the stress with all this kind of stuff. But have it in a very manageable, in like everyone's kind of time that they're available. And just have it be a little thing that you can always reach, and like you open up the book and there's just like like artwork of a ripped JoJo character doing a pose with his stand, and he's just like, you are worthy of being loved. You are worthy of accepting love. You are worthy of being nice. Like very positive affirmations, but also be able to discuss like, yes, things are gonna suck and things suck right now, but you're not alone. And even in the back of it have like, I don't know, the crisis number and stuff like that put in there. Because I think that's really what people need right now. People use video games as an escape, and especially now, I know a lot of people use games as an escape, which is a beautiful thing. But also, I think people need that pick-me-up. They need that support. They need that little bit of, hey, let me help you out. I don't know if you just heard my stomach growl, but it was super loud. But that's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking in my gamer brain. That's going to be my next project, I think, after completing that book. And I want to jump back to the, I'm not going to lie anymore. All those short stories and document stuff, it is being worked on. So I really think what will happen is you'll come to listen to the podcast, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute. This guy's reading about a galaxy he made up in his brain. Yeah, and that's probably what it's going to be one day. So if you're not into that, totally fine. But if you're into that, it'll happen eventually. And actually, having guests is a lot more difficult than I thought it would be. Because other people apparently have schedules. Like, I will set up a time, and then when it gets to that time, something happens. Or my one friend lives all the way down in the Pittsburgh area, actually near the bottom of it. So doing it in person isn't always a thing. And then we try to do it, over, like, Discord and stuff like that. And there's ways to go around that. Like, each person records their audio and then sends it to one person, and then you sync it up. But it's still a lot of work. So I'm sorry, I can't make any promises right now. Until things get better in the world, or maybe I change a job. Maybe something a little less stress-inducing. But hey, now this is what it's all about. Nerds in the real world. Life gets crazy, and then you watch Fortnite fight Google and the Apple company, which those are the two, probably the biggest ones. Yeah. Like Google owns everything. Their thumbs on everything. Apple the same way. So games I've been playing recently, to really hard change topics, because I feel like we're just going to sit here and talk about emotions all day, is this little indie. Now, I'm not sure if it's on Kickstarter or if it was. It's in early access on Steam, and you can find it in other spots. But it's called Monster Crown, I believe. It's a game like Pokemon. If you're interested in the kind of monster collecting genre, it's just that. However, there's something different about this one, because there's a lot of games that emulate Pokemon. That's their goal, right? To emulate it completely. And they don't necessarily leave any interpretation for their own creativity with the mechanics and how things are set up. On the other end, Monster Crown kind of, like, you can tell it's inspired by Pokemon, but it is not tied to Pokemon. It is not trying to emulate it. It is just, it's inspired by it, right? And the goal is to have a more mature plot and storyline, and also have more mature and kind of more scary looking monsters to tame, which is very interesting. And the world that is set up in that is that humans and monsters like fought for the longest time. They would kill each other. Monsters would attack people on site. People attack monsters. And it came a point where all the humans of the world gathered and pretty much beat the monsters into submission. Now, monsters are still around. The way you catch them is pretty much you give them a pact, and they sign a pact, and that's how they join your party. And there's a very interesting breeding mechanic where I'm so used to Pokemon where you breed, I don't know, you breed a female and a male Pokemon of the same egg type, but I think that's changed. That's just the same type now. And then the Pokemon that would come out would always just be the female Pokemon, right? In this game, when you breed, from the few times I've bred my monsters, they've always become this kind of like mishmash of the two I put together. So now I'm thinking, so like, can this happen to all the, monsters? Maybe. Maybe not. But it's interesting to find out, and it's actually fun to kind of experiment with that kind of stuff. Because in Pokemon, it's been around for so long and it's been unrivaled for so long that you just kind of know what to expect. And then when you play those Pokemon knockoff clones, like, you know exactly what you're getting. You really do. You know that there's always going to be 3 starters. There's always going to be this. It's going to be this type. And like Monster Crown, you have a choice of 5 starters. And there's like obvious starters that are better than other starters. I don't know. It's really interesting to see a new take on it. Which is, guess why I'm kind of okay with talking about my own concept for a monster catching game, which is being talked about, and I've been doing pixel art for it for the past little bit. And I think we're at the point now where I'm very confident in kind of talking about it and throwing ideas out there, in the sense that, I swear to God, if any of you 10 people who listen to this podcast steals my idea and becomes successful off of it, I will walk into your home, shoot you point blank in the noggin with a gun, and I don't care who's home, then I'll take a nap in your bed. And I'll wait for the cops to come get me. They'll have to wake me up because I'm going to sleep really heavy. The idea I have is for a game called Sprouters. Now, Sprouters is pretty much a term for the monsters of the game, which are just called sprouts. And every monster you not even catch, every monster you have to grow them, right? So you will get into combat with a wild sprout, right? There's a percentage chance that they will drop a seed. Once you get that seed, you can take that seed to your little farm base, which is at the center of the giant region that we've kind of put out there. And you can plant that seed. Now, there is a little bit of like Harvest Moon here where you have to water it and make sure it's okay. And even sometimes I was thinking it would be neat to have a mechanic where you have to like get a scarecrow to keep birds away so they don't peck at the stuff. But every time you grow a monster, you pull it out of the ground. Okay. Now it's a little weaker, right? But there would be this system that Pokemon really likes to do right now where all the experience is shared. And there'd be a way that we could throttle it where, okay, I want to have this monster catch up to my party right now because I just grew them, so they're going to be level 1. So there's a way that we could set it up where the mechanics would be geared at leveling up a monster pretty quickly. And also we could always add in different kinds of items that you could use to increase their level too. Because I just combined my 2 favorite game genres, which is the monster catching genre and games like Harvest Moon. I mean, Harvest Moon's been trash for so many years. However, Stardew Valley is pretty much the savior we needed. So it kind of evens out, right? So you farm your sprouts, you build your team, you wander the world. Now, what's different about this is when you wander the world outside of the narrative structure of the game, which is something I've been kind of working on and throwing around too, is that you're free to do whatever. Yes, there are gyms in the area, and we're working on figuring out names for gyms, but you can, I'm trying to look for the right word here. I guess everything would be there'd be level scaling. That's what the point I'm trying to get to, right? So you can go do whatever you want. You see a gym up here in the snowy mountains, heck yeah, you go right there. All the monsters in the area will be level scaled. Now, they'll be a little higher than you, but there's a little bit of challenge, but at the same time, you can go wherever you want. You can really explore the island at your leisure. So you can go do all these different gyms in any order you want. And I'm throwing this idea out there. If you hear anything that doesn't sound like it'll work, throw it in the comments on the YouTube page, or find out some way of letting me know, right? That you can complete the kind of the gym side of the Pokemon games on your own undisturbed. So if you really just like to play for the mechanics, you don't have to be disturbed by story. You can just go boom, 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 I make my party. Cool. The narrative side of it is something that I kind of monkeyed around with, and there's a few ways that, I can necessarily do it. But you actually play as a different character. You play as a character named Mia. And I got designs for her floating around here somewhere on this total mess of a studio I have right now, in which Mia is kind of this blue-haired punk girl, but she's really sweet, but misunderstood and trying to figure herself out. A very coming-of-age type of narrative. And she falls into wrong crowds. She makes some mistakes to the point where she doesn't feel like she's worthy to return home to her mom when everything hits rock bottom. So any kind of narrative bit, you actually play as her. Now, you still build up your own team as her. And I think this is cool because you can build up sprouts in her party that you don't experience building up in your party because you're like, I already have a team that I like. So it allows you to kind of flip-flop. And the narrative beats can all be accepted in the main little town. And there's from the start, there's a fast travel system to cities you've already been to and little outposts. So it's not like you're running back and forth to all these places, which would take up time. I believe what the monster catching genre is missing right now is a level of freedom. And definitely Pokemon likes to push you down this one direction, and you do have moments where you can explore a route, but there's you still know you have to go this way. You have to, or the story won't progress. I want to offer that thing. If you want to run and fight all these different gyms at once, then do that. And then oh, you know what? I want to go and play the story. I want to play the narrative bits. And you can do that too. I want to add freedom to this, but also all the monsters are pretty much plant-based. There are some sprouts that when you pull them out of the ground, you're like, okay, this is an onion with a light bulb on its head. Okay. But also sometimes you'll get monsters that, oh, this is just like a aquatic dog. Because there is a part that I want to focus all the sprout designs on being kind of plant-based, but also I want to focus the design on not being plant-based at all. So literally you just pull this aquatic dog out of the ground and it's ready to go. And there is kind of a idea for a system I had where pretty much you take two seeds and you can blend them together, kind of like the breeding thing in Monster Count I was talking about. But we have sprouts that do two-stage evolution, so there's the initial one and then it evolves once, and then there's sprouts that don't do anything. However, you can combine the two seeds of sprouts that don't evolve, and that's when you can get a new sprout from that. And currently the plan is that we're able to do that with most of them. Now the number we're going to be rocking with is 150. There's a lot of sprouts that aren't going to make the cut. I already know that. After doing designs, I'm sitting there, I'm like, what the hell is this? But 150 sprouts, and that kind of includes the ones that you can pretty much combine the seeds and get a new seed out of it. Yeah, that's what we're going with. I'm sorry, I was glancing down because I have a little notepad here of everything I'm talking about. And I'm like, was that a thing we talked about? Yeah, I think that was the idea we talked about. And all the sprouts follow the kind of the Pokemon design, but also I wanted to bring my own design into it. I wanted to bring my own flavor to it. What I was saying earlier, I think a lot of people who make the monster type catching game don't like to do. They don't like to bring their own flair to it. They like to copy Pokemon. And for me personally, I believe that's what I really liked about Monster Crown was you can tell, okay, it's like a Pokemon game, but they're inspired by it. They're not trying to copy it, which I can applaud. And that's kind of what I want to do. And I just want the game to be simple and enjoyable. Typing still trying to be figured out because we could have a lot of types or we could have only a small handful of types and have them affect each other. And I mean, there's a bazillion different ways we can do that. And the combat, that's what you're probably wondering. How's that going to work? The person I was talking to had a beautiful suggestion, which I really liked, how there's two things that we're going to be taking from other games. Other games will do a stamina system where an attack takes a certain amount of stamina. Cool. But also, attacks kind of happen in real time. You will take a sprout, put them in the battle. They have 4 attacks. Now all the attacks take stamina, and there's like some attack like, all right, there's no recharge, but it takes a lot of stamina. Or there was one where there's a timer that it takes. So it's very real time, and it's also strategic in that sense where you're like, okay, I want to use my stamina to build up my defenses so I can take a few hits so I can use my really powerful attack that will kill it in 1 or 2 hits. I guess you could compare it to the, what is it called? The limit system in like Final Fantasy games where there's that bar you have to recharge, then you choose your attack. Kind of like that, but each attack is its own bar that you kind of have to charge. And also, accessibility is going to be the main focus, in which there's no like, oh, if you change a move, you have to go remove. Oh my gosh. Me and words, we do not get along. Relearn a move from some guy in this house so far away. No. There's just going to be a menu that has all your listed moves. You just put the moves in there, pick the ones you want. And I think there's still some merit to limiting your moves, just because if you had all your moves, you could pull yourself out of a bad situation, which is fine. But we also kind of want that strategic element where, okay, that battle didn't go good because I didn't have this move. So now I swap in that move and you're like, okay, now I'm ready to handle this. So that's the idea for Sprouters. I mean, that's the very loosely sketched idea. And I think the best way to actually make it would be to build 2 just totally different games, right? So you build the narrative piece of the game where it's all cutscenes and all interactions. And then there's the just kind of almost open world style where you just go wherever you want. Build those 2, and then we just kind of smash them together and just put in triggers for stuff. And I've been actually diving into kind of the game dev stuff with using Game Maker. And okay, it's not easy. I'll never say it's easy. But after monkeying around with that, a lot of stuff is kind of understandable to me, which is weird because I'm actually pretty terrible at math. But at this point, anyone can make a game, because if you have a system or if you have a idea that you want to put in, but you don't understand the code or know how to code it, I guarantee you that somewhere on the internet, that code is put up. That code is coming from somewhere who, makes game tutorials for a living on YouTube or something like that. There's always a way where you can find it, which I think is beautiful about this day and age where anyone can have the idea. Now, it's super hard for me to be consistent with the idea and also do it alone, which is why I brought on some people to help me out. And if this sounds like an idea that might interest you, hit me up. Dial my digits. Let me know what's going on. What are you thinking? Because I would also like just a kind of community to build this. And I guess before I end the episode, there is another source of big inspiration. And I'm not going to lie about what I'm inspired by, which is, Now, I believe his YouTube channel is Mr. Buddy. He has a like very Pokemon anime looking character with a big front frohawk. And he's currently in the process of making a Pokemon-like game. Now, he is inspired by the game. He loves the series, and he's actually been doing these like video vlogs of like these kind of community events where he bounces ideas off of people and gets ideas about stuff. And if you're interested in anything like that, I recommend checking it out. Like just sitting, listening to his live streams he does on YouTube, and he just kind of talks about the creative process and what he has to do to be able to get ideas is super cool. And also it helps me be a little more creative and a little more focused on what I want to do with this project. So yeah, go on YouTube, check out Mr. Buddy, or you could look up Buddy Mon, like type that in, and you'll be able to find it. And I lied about that being my closing argument. I think my closing I'm not arguing with anyone. I think my closing statement is really going to be that I've reached a point in my life, and it kind of wraps all this into a nice little bow, everything we talked about. Yeah, games are awesome. I really enjoy them. They're going to be a part of my life probably until I die. But also, I'm at the point where I'm seeing things I don't necessarily like in games. And instead of complaining about them, I'm getting to the point where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go make a game. I'm going to create something that I can share my vision with everyone. And that lately it's been that burning passion inside me that's been growing. And I don't know if that's because work's been getting so terrible or if I'm just reaching that age of maturity. You know, I really don't think anyone ever stops growing up, even though you kind of stop growing at like 25, 26, that range. You still have a whole life to learn lessons and to learn about yourself. And I think I'm learning the lesson that I'm actually driven. I just wasn't mature or ready yet. And I think that's what's starting to happen in my life now. So with that being said, I appreciate you stopping by and listening. I love you guys. I'll see you next time. If you're uncomfortable or if anyone makes you want to drink something that you don't know what's in it, just call me. I'll come pick you up. Okay, bye. Okay, one more.